Alright, Matthew, welcome to episode 63 of the Performance Advantage podcast, where we bring sports science to the people with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, and Dr. Matt Miller, aka MTB PhD sports scientist. This week on the show, we're doing behind the scenes of the Length of NZ Tri. It's a project Matt and I were involved with the last couple of weeks, so we're going to recap that. As always, shout out to our sponsors and partners, the Endurance Training Hub and Smart MTB Training. Go on there, we're doing live webinars, Matt and I, it's like a podcast plus, and check that out. It's like $10-15 a month, depending on how you're joining up, what membership you're taking. So check that out, supports the show, you get more content, more engaging live content from us, and yeah, check it out.
Gotta laugh to myself a little bit because we're sitting so closely.
Yeah,
to each
very
other.
close. Yeah.
So we normally don't record the podcast together, but here we are together, and I didn't bring my microphone, so we're sharing a microphone.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're both like have our mouth against the mic. It's not that weird, but we're still like sitting across from each other at a very small table. So yeah, this definitely ranks up there in our awkward ones. Get used to it though.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Matt, how are you recovering from the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I feel great actually.
Do ya?
Yeah, I feel great. Yeah. I ended up riding quite a lot with Kieran, which we'll talk about, but he rode more and he ran and stuff, so I wasn't really complaining, and I actually felt fine the whole time, which I was surprised at. And yeah, I'm feeling really good now. So
for those of you who don't follow us kind of outside of the podcast, we spent the last couple of weeks with the athlete that I coach, Kieran McPherson, and he had the idea to do a length of New Zealand triathlon. So from the bottom of our nation of New Zealand and Bluff to the very top, Cape Reinga. So it was just over 2,000 kilometers. He was going to swim, bike, and run every day his way up the country. That's the only way he was going to make it up the country. And yeah, we made it 10 days.
Well, we made it almost like most of the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
10 out of 14 days.
The goal was 7 days per island. We have 2 islands in New Zealand, for those who don't know, North and South, aptly named. And we were 10 into the 14 days, and all things were looking like it was all good. Like he was covering around anywhere from 150 to 200 Ks a day in total, and around 10 hours to 12 hours per day. And yeah, we're on track until the resurgence of that virus.
Yeah, COVID stopped us. It actually ended up being, so the trip was great, and obviously Kieran was struggling, by the end. Actually, he was struggling from the start, really, because he went way too hard at the start, and he ended up doing a lot of damage to his knee. But he was hanging in there, and he was getting every day done. We were taping him up to make sure he stayed together, and he was pacing properly, eating properly. And we got to his hometown, and we were actually doing some work that night with the media that from Radix Nutrition, who supported the trip. And he said, "Hey, there's some announcement coming on live on the news." I was like, "Oh." And then Will was sleeping out in the camper van. So we were actually at Kieran's house, right? He was in bed.
Yeah. So, in that sense, we'd made it to Matamata, aka Hobbiton, Hobbiton set of the Lord of the Rings, where Kieran lives, and we got to his parents' house, and we'd had this nice dinner and sorted everything out. And yeah, then we were all settling down, pretty much packing up. I literally went out. I was still sleeping in the camper. Jumped on the call with my wife Emma, and she's she had this worried look on her face, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she's like, "The news." And so I ran, and she's like, about COVID, and we had no idea. It was just breaking news at 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah, but that's a pretty big deal in New Zealand because every other country's been kind of coping with COVID, and in New Zealand we haven't had COVID.
Yeah.
So we had 102 days, I think it was, where we didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah. We had border control strict because we're, an island nation of 5 million. We had strict border controls, so the only people we were catching were just like coming in, and they were in like managed quarantine facility, government managed quarantine facility. So there's no like community spread. And so this was,
it came out of nowhere.
Massive news in New Zealand, because literally we had nothing in the community. We were living life as normal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we don't want to minimize the situation, but man, it really affected this length of NZ try. Like, so the Steve from the media team, like he was there filming the documentary.
Yeah.
And he pretty much got everything, like waking Kieran up.
Yeah.
Telling him the news, like, dude, we can't do the trip anymore because we have to go through Auckland and Auckland is shut. Like, no, we're not going to swim around it like you want to do. Like, it's done. And, that is all going to be in the documentary. But yeah, the trip paused and we had to go home. It was like a really big letdown, I think, for everyone, because he worked really hard. Like, everyone worked really hard.
Yeah.
We were putting in a lot of time. It ended up, for me, being a lot bigger of a job than I expected supporting him. I thought I'd be able to do a lot of work on the road.
Yeah.
And it didn't really happen like that, because it takes a big team to take care of one dude doing a big feat.
It was the biggest takeaway for me from that trip, it was just incredible. So yeah, Kieran was swimming in an open body of water, like 8 Celsius water. What's that in Fahrenheit, Matt? Go.
I have no idea.
Cold.
Yeah, it's pretty cold. Yeah, it's cold water.
Because it's in the middle of winter in like an alpine climate kind of thing. So he'd swim kind of like 20 minutes. So he'd, like 3 layers of wetsuit on. And then he'd get on the bike and bike around 160 to 190, I think was the biggest day on the bike. And then he'd run, initially, as we'll talk about, started at 30 kilometers and got down to about 10. And so we had to do everything. Like, his job was to exercise. And behind the scenes, I kind of thought, and when I was initially planning with Kieran, it was like, yeah, cool, we'll grab your stuff and, chuck it in the car, drive up the road, catch you in a few hours. And then I can, we can do our work and chill out and maybe go for a run and have a bunch of fun traveling the country, right? And what happened?
It wasn't like that at all, because when we have to prepare for, say we have to make his meal and we go 2 hours ahead or something like that. It takes us 45 minutes to get there.
Yeah, at least.
Then we stop, find a place to stop, then we settle ourselves in, make his food, but then we have about half an hour until he arrives. You don't really have time to get into a rhythm to do your work.
Yeah.
It was a big task, and fortunately, his family came along, his dad came, and his brother came.
Yeah.
And, they were clutch.
Yeah.
They did a lot of work.
We would have broken down.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But, I think it ended up being manageable with everyone there, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, just, it's opened my eyes, so, a few episodes ago, we did the one on my 24-hour race.
Oh, yeah.
And, what I realized was, how much the support team has to do and know in advance, because literally you're left there not knowing. You can say, I need 60 grams of carbs an hour, make sure it's this and this, 2 gels and blah blah, and then you get there and you're like, no, I don't want these gels, I want the water-based ones. and not this bar, I wanted the protein bar. I was like, well, you didn't write that, this is, and then we're on time schedules, maybe we didn't buy enough, or they were in another bag that we didn't know where it was because we're traveling and all that. And now he's upset, the athlete is, because they're tired and they think you have one job. Yeah. And it's I can see this happening with me doing a 24-hour event. Where's my thing? Oh, so I didn't fill that drink bottle up. I didn't know you needed more water this time, or you needed whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that just puts pressure on everyone for the next however long.
Yeah, and all he's thinking, when he sets off after he sees you next, he's just thinking for 5 hours how annoyed he is that you weren't prepared.
Yeah, yes, because you, we're, the people listening, you've done some big events, or you, something really challenging for a few hours, and maybe you haven't taken enough food, whatever, you're tired. You know how irritable you can be, especially if you got that one person who's half wheeling you, or like just won't shut up, or like it's too slow and you have to keep waiting for them, and everyone's tired. No one at this stage, no one wants to be there. Like, and then someone will say something and you stew it over, or you just think about stuff that happened at home. Like, oh, why didn't, like when we were flatting together, like why doesn't Matt just do the dishes?
I mean, I always do the dishes, but yeah.
And you just stew on that. And so you imagine exercising for 12 hours every day. Yeah. And then on like the 8th, 9th, 10th day, and if something goes wrong, then those things stew. But anyway, what I was saying was like, just a level of organization that has to be in place so that you know everybody knows what's going on. There's no pressure on people.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big ask. Like, so we were full tilt from start to finish every day. So from day one, we're full on. So we would wake up at 6:15, and it was, you hadn't arrived yet because you were flying in at the end of that day. So we're like, okay, let's get into this routine and see what can happen. And we had 2 separate camper vans. The one was the big camper, and, Kieran shared a bed with his dad. It was like, things were tight,
Yeah.
But wake up at 6:15, making coffees, making his first breakfast, get to the water. He's in the water by 7, swims for however long, then he needs to get changed and have a warm breakfast. And after he has his warm breakfast, get into his bike stuff. So by the time he gets on his bike, it's
and like, someone's getting his bike ready during that.
Yeah. So I would make sure his bike was ready. Also try and get some social media.
Yeah.
So we were running his social media the whole time. He didn't have to even respond to personal messages because he wouldn't have. So yeah, it was full tilt. Then once he's on the bike, then we're driving ahead, and then we're trying to get into rhythm. Like, okay, can I like get out and do some riding as well? And we ended up doing that, which was fortunate. So for me, I ended up getting more riding than I normally would by a long shot, and that was pretty good. So I got to spend that first day with him, and not knowing like Kieran's thresholds or anything like that, or what kind of power he normally holds, I was just kind of riding with him, and I'm like, this seems a little bit fast. Like, I'm not sure if you can keep up like a 200 watt average and also run almost a marathon every day. I think you're going to crack a little bit if you do this. And he's like, no. Like, I just go by feel. This feels pretty good. It's like, okay. And the first day I did 70 Ks with him, and towards the end of it, where he was going to transition to his run, it was just this ridiculous headwind. And I wasn't going to try and push myself, so I ducked in behind him, and I didn't really feel much, but I could see, like, he was head down, trying. Like, I don't think this is a good way to start off a 14-day trip. And, yeah. Then he did a 30K run.
Yeah.
And you said it was a bit fast.
Way too fast. Yeah. So this was like pacing on steroids, right? Because we had 14 days and you have to go so slow, like for your capacity. Now you think about the big mountain bike events that you've done, 100K, 100-mile rides or whatever, and same for running or Ironman triathlon. You're like really holding back. You understand that, but you're still actually trying a bit as well. And so then you have to go slower than that.
Right.
And like even running a marathon, like 3 to 4 hours, and you still feel like the first half an hour is like too slow, And so you think about a 14-day thing, of like 12 hours a day. And this was always going to be the case because I was like, he's so fit and so fast. We're talking about a guy who can run 14 minutes for 5K, and so to tell him to run 6-minute Ks, which is literally over half, like, as slow, it's like ridiculously slow. And same with the bike, when he can ride for, like, I think he averaged like 300 watts for 2 hours kind of thing. To go down to 200 or not 200, it was 160. Again, like half of what he can hold.
Yeah, that was what he was supposed to be holding.
Yeah.
Because I called you halfway through that ride when he was eating.
That's right.
I could see him eating, and like, when you're tired and you're trying to eat and you're just shoveling it in, and his food was like all over his shirt, like all over the ground, like all over his face. And you're like, okay, I think you're pushing a little bit hard to like not notice that the food is all over. And so I called you right away. I was like, I think he's going a bit hard. He's averaging 200 watts with his heart rate at this. Because I kept asking him, like, what's it all at? And you're like, yeah, that's too hard. He needs to slow down. I told him, and, he was just too momotivated.
Yeah, so we did some big training weeks, like 40 plus hours, but the way we structured it, because I can't let him cook himself in training, obviously, it's not the goal. So we would kind of do 2 to 3 days, big days, like these kind of almost 10-hour, 8-hour kind of days where he's running, like 2 of the days he literally biked 200 Ks and then run a marathon for Saturday and Sunday. Massive. And because I was like, we need to know what you can handle. Like, and in an isolated 2-day event kind of thing, we can get that and make sure he recovers, and then we would recover. Alright, so he was able to, we got a lot of good data, but he would always push a bit hard because he's motivated. And then if he's overcooked slightly, he's recovering. So,
right, because he doesn't have to go for another 8 days.
Yeah, yeah. And if we needed another day of recovery, because, I'd put him back into another kind of run and we can test pace versus heart rate or power versus heart rate and be like, you still need another day. Then we'll get back into trying some more. We had a lot of flexibility, but, I knew from that every time it's like, this is too fast. He's like, I can't really go any slower, and so then you taper. He tapered for 2 weeks and like really tapered because he had to organize his whole, like,
he had a lot of admin.
Yeah, like camper vans, like places to stay, the ferry, like crossing and all of this kind of stuff, flights, everything. And I knew he would come in there so motivated, because he was even, I'm not going to put it all on Kieran, like, oh, maybe if you've got a tailwind and you're feeling good, you might bike 200 Ks plus. Because that was the data we were getting. Like, yeah, you probably could. Maybe you could do it quicker than the 14 days planned. So, and I knew it. We're athletes. You know what it's like. Like, someone puts this time on it, 14 days, but maybe you could go faster. Okay, I'll try to go faster.
I'm definitely going faster.
Yeah. But the first day was never the day to do that. Like, the decision was going to be made on day 3 and 4 as to whether we could push on. But anyway, I wasn't there. I was flying in that evening because it just didn't work out to be in Bluff. Queenstown was where he was finishing. Way easier to just fly into Queenstown. And so I wasn't there and you weren't, like, there's a few things. And so pretty much, averaged 200 watts for 190 Ks and then got off, ran 30 Ks at 5:20 average. And, he was supposed to be at 160 in 6 minutes. And for someone that fit after that much of a taper, those two, they feel easy. Like, nothing feels, and then it kind of, on the bike, you feel it's getting hard. But you know what it's like. You were riding whatever Ks, 25, 27 Ks an hour. You don't want to now go to 22.
Right.
And it took a lot more out of them than I anticipated, because the next day he was pushing again, like back up around 200 watts, like slow down, and then I was running with him, so we were able to slow him down, but we still did 20 Ks pretty quick, still just under 6-minute Ks. Like, I had him walking a lot more and everything, and then so he didn't get the recovery, and then day 3 and 4 was a mess. Right? Yeah.
Day 3 ended up being a lot of gravel, and his power dropped massively.
Yeah.
And one of the issues was that he spent almost that whole day alone.
Yeah.
And there was no motivation.
So he's on the Alps to Ocean, like, cycle way, which is like a, beautiful track through the, like, central South Island.
Yeah. I started that day with him, and it was noticeably slower.
Yeah.
Very easy. And we did, like, actually quite a bit of elevation gain on the gravel, and it was extremely slow. Like, can't go any slower on the uphill. So I was like, well, this is probably closer to where he should be if he's going to kind of keep it ticking over. And he wasn't pushing or anything like that. But I think his power on that day on the bike ended up being something like 110 watts.
Yeah.
And he was just totally devastated because I ended up ripping my tire, so I had to stop, got out, and he was solo. And when we saw him at the end of the bike, he was just
like, we had to lie the bike down so he could get off of it, and then
he was ruined.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it was management from then on, just making sure that he was okay.
Yeah.
From day 3.
Yeah, yeah.
So, one of the problems that I had, or at least that I identified in the whole thing is power meters are super valuable for pacing, and he had spent a lot of time training without one. So he had a power meter on his bike, but it didn't work. He had an SRM that just wasn't working. So we sorted a power meter for him and put it on his bike, and he knew kind of what he should be aiming for, but he didn't have the time on it in the past few months to definitely stick with that power. And he ended up pushing slightly harder than he should have and looking at it less than he probably should have.
Yeah.
And that massive day, that was slightly too hard. Only slightly, because his heart rate was still pretty low.
Yeah, it's still around 130,
yeah.
which was also a goal, but being so fresh and motivated, or not so much motivated, doesn't really affect heart rate, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and then he did this, so we had to do some spacing with the power meter that kind of pushed the crank out a little bit more than we should have, potentially. And then his run was all off camber. And on a pretty busy, road where people are traveling because the view is amazing. Into Queenstown. It looks super cool along the lake and everything. But, so that was off camber on his left side again. So, crank was spaced a little bit much on his left side, and then off camber on his left side. And that was the knee that was ruined from kind of a combination of all the factors, for the rest of the trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just those things you just wouldn't consider. Because even, we prepared as best we could for Kieran.
Yeah.
And, in terms of his training and the planning of the trip, but then that's why you do these things, I guess. We have so much data now on what it takes outside of just the physical feat.
Yeah.
Pacing obviously is the physical feat, and that's super important. But one of the interesting things was on that first couple of days, even maybe the third day a little bit in the run, his heart rate was getting up, 140, 150, which is still completely aerobic for him. And we did the VO2 lactate testing, and that showed, even he could run 4-minute 30 per K, completely aerobically, no issues. But then, I don't know what day it was, let's say 5, 6, his heart rate's not getting above 115.
Mm.
And just the sheer suppression of his sympathetic nervous system, he was just unexcitable.
Yeah.
In terms of if we had said we need to get up and go, whatever, there's a dog chasing us or you got to boost off the street, there would have been no capacity he kind of hit this homeostasis of and you've probably seen it if you watch documentaries of these crazy people biking around the world, race across America, these 200-mile running races which are 4 days long, and they kind of just hit this point where they're this is what I do now. This is it. This is the, I guess, level of fitness you have to be able to exercise. I was trying to figure out, why was his heart rate so low, but he's still exercising at a reasonable intensity.
Yeah.
What otherwise would have generated around a 130. So, what happened to those 20 beats?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that a few times, looking at heart rate traces from 24-hour races, where the lap times stay pretty consistent, but the heart rate goes from 170 average, which was too high for the person, down to 120 average, but they're still pulling the same lap times.
Yeah.
So we know that some things change with braking, and that's what our research showed, but the sympathetic response to being fatigued is such that that's kind of what happens with your heart rate. And without power, you're not actually seeing the real work that's happening. You're just looking at the response that is based on a lot of things. And that's why power's number one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also, theorize that you start to rely on those big muscle units. If you have you're running and you're predominantly using your quads and glutes and calves, but you also have all these other less strong supporting muscles that are all active to stabilize, Kieran's knee, his ITBs, there's a lot of other muscle groups like his upper body and everything that's being activated. So there's distribution of blood to other muscle groups and areas, whereas after 3 days they're just so fatigued and never well trained enough to be able to continue that level of engagement that you kind of rely on. Just it'd be interesting to look at his cadence data as well. Like, I know in running it slowed, and also it slowed in terms of we did a lot more walking, run to walk. But you just rely on those super big heavy motor units that can just hit a certain point, and that's the level of muscular contraction. So if you did like a maximal voluntary contraction, which is like, anyone listening, like bench press, do 1 max bench press or something like that. Now, if you go and want to do like 1,000 bench presses, there'll be that weight at which you can just keep going, and so that's whereas if you just started doing that, you'd be so excitable, and have the other muscle groups helping to support that I think there's blood distribution and utilization by those. And also the inefficient muscle groups, which is like your fast glycolytic or type 2X, which they're easily fatigable. They're gone. They're now no longer requiring oxygen or generating CO2 that needs to be extracted. Same with lactate. Did that last episode. So you kind of they have no blood supply requirements. Not no, but extremely. And I think that's where it all degrades, along with the like catecholamine hormone responses. Yeah,
there's a lot going on for sure.
Yeah. So that was kind of the recap of the trip. Like, we haven't really, it only finished a week ago now, a little less. So we didn't have time to unpack everything, like in terms of the data,
right,
and all of that. But even just looking at like if we talk about TSS on Training Peaks and I had him wearing a Stride running power meter. I haven't unpacked that data, but interested to look at ground contact time, stride length at the same pace and everything like that. But the sheer load of day one relative, even though time-wise he was still going 10, 12 hours, was just so drastic to what we now know should be, if he's planning to finish off the final 4 days, like your training load needs to be around this. And even as his coach, like going forward, he wants to do some more big projects. We have that data. This is sustainable. This is not.
Yeah, it's good to have. And without having like a real, almost like a competition, it's almost like a competition because this is the event, in a way. And without having actual information from the event, you still don't know what to expect because training's different. You're sleeping in your own bed and you're not going in.
Well, those were other big things like that Kieran and I realized like post event was when we did these big training days, he would, anyone in New Zealand, like, so he lives in Matamata, he'd bike down like the Waikato River Trail to Taupo, and then he would go for a big run around Taupo and stay at his friend's place, and his friend would cook up dinner, and like sleep in the bed, hot shower. He had a change of clothes there, and like it was all good.
Yeah.
But then when you have to like wait for everyone to finish cooking your dinner, clean, because it's in the same house, which is your camper van, and then unpack your bed, and then set it all up, and then have nowhere to put warm clothes and potentially a warm shower, there's like another stress, and that was things we never considered to be as impactful as they were come day 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. And 10. he was getting pretty irritable by the end of it. Like, I was quite surprised actually, but like we know what people are like when they're exercising, and I kind of expected it, and he obviously, like, he wasn't like hurting my feelings or anything, but he was saying some things that probably weren't true, and he obviously had some ideas in his head, and I'm not sure if he really understood kind of what we were doing every day as well, but that fatigue was really catching up with him. He was more emotional.
Yeah.
I know he like had a cry to himself.
Yeah, his lows were lower.
Yeah.
Like really low, and his highs were non-existent kind of thing.
Yeah.
And massive change also like in the so we did 10 days of the final 5 days, if we call them that. When someone was with him and when someone wasn't, huge difference.
Different guy.
Yeah. Just to be able to talk about his, like, some of his feelings.
Yeah.
Or just not talk.
Yeah.
Have someone else talking. Cause, you know, we've been there, not to that extent, but we've been out there where you can get down, you know. It's, some days were like, we had a couple raining days. It's wet, it's headwind, it's cold, you know. And that was when, before Oakuni, he just started crying. Like, cause you know what, I think we were like day 8. He had 6 days still to go of like 12 hours every day. Another night in a camper, like it was
bleak.
It was, it was rough, you know. It's not what we put on social media. That's for sure at times.
Well, I think people are interested to see like him suffering, and there's a lot of interest in that. It was really hard to show that, I think. Yeah,
because you don't want to like intrude. Because you kind of need to capture someone where they're at their worst. Yeah. No one wants a camera in their face when
Yeah, he was getting annoyed at cameras in his face when he was low. Yeah. So it was tough.
Which makes sense because it's like, you know, at one point I was like, all right, just recap what you did for the ride. And he was like, he didn't even know. Like, he probably could have asked him his name at that stage and he was just like, had no idea. So it was, but I think the documentary, he captured a lot of that, and the emotion of when we found out that we had to stop was like, there was all those different levels of like, no, we have to, like, you know, stuff everybody stuff everybody. Oh, no, wait. And, that whole process is, super interesting.
Yeah.
What about you? You rode a lot.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Like, you're banging out like a 150k, couple over 4-hour rides.
Yeah, I did a couple days that were, 150. Bunch of days. Yeah, I haven't ridden that much in quite a long time. So I had to look back through, because I still record everything on Training Peaks.
So the actual problem of the trip was like us having to look after Matt because he was so cracked.
No, I actually felt fine, and that's the weird thing. Like, I really haven't ridden much lately, just the weather's been like pretty crap. And so I've ridden most days like for an hour or whatever, just because I just haven't felt like it, so I didn't. And so I was like, oh boy, I don't know how I'm going to go on these big rides. But I went fine. Like my knee felt a bit tender after the first like longer one. Like it felt like really tender actually. But like I couldn't say anything because obviously Kieran's knee was extremely tender and he was very tired. So I just kind of kept that to myself and it would kind of warm up after about 50 Ks and I'd feel pretty fine. Stop off and crack it a little bit. Because I've had some knee issues in the past when I used to train a lot. But the last time I did something like this was like 2016 when same kind of situation. I just decided I was going to do a lot of riding at once and I rode across Europe in 10 days and I did that fine as well. But
fine, like I remember you cried and had to book a hotel room.
Yeah,
I'll just like pop 10, chill out, just cruise around. And you're like, there's the worst thing. I'm never doing that.
Well, it was the same problems Kieran was having, like exercising a lot. It was cold, rainy, which I wasn't expecting.
Weren't as prepared as you thought you'd need to be as well.
Yeah,
like in terms of like your food and accommodation and
I was kind of booking that like while I was riding on the app.
And when you get tired.
And
add in jet lag.
And you're solo as well. So I wouldn't recommend like riding across the country solo or like a continent solo in 10 days. But so that was like the last time I did it. I think I did like 70 hours or something per week or whatever in those 10 days. And after that, like there's a massive fitness boost when you do something like that. I was riding, I think, because I had my power meter on that, and we did like a pre-test.
Yeah.
Like sub-max, VO2 max. Everything went up. I lost like 5 kgs, something like that. And, between pre and post testing, and like racing went well for quite a while. So I know like doing something like that, averaging even 110 watts, which is what I did for 10 hours a day. Like you can get really fit doing that.
Yeah.
Just riding easy. So, I've felt great since the trip. Like I did some pretty good mountain bike rides this weekend. The weather was perfect. And just kind of pushing, 200 watts up the hills, I feel fine. Totally fine. So, yeah.
So you're going to do a power test? Because you're supposed to race, but obviously everything got cancelled in New Zealand because of the thing.
Yeah.
So we need a power test.
I know, yeah. So, like, it was really good timing because we have this local relay race that my team...
you were talking about with Jay Barrett.
Yeah.
But, a few episodes ago, you were a bit worried.
Yeah.
Oh, you won as well. We talked about that.
Yeah. Did a win, but, well, I had a race a few weeks after that. It didn't go so good. So there was like, I've seen a lot of it.
Yeah, we didn't do a podcast on that.
No one wants to hear that. Maybe they do, but yeah, that one was interesting. But we had a relay race coming up. The boys were counting on me, like they're pretty fast. And, I just didn't want to let them down. So I was like, yeah, sweet. Like, we're going to race and I'll be fit. But the race got canceled because of COVID.
Yeah.
And, so now I need to keep riding, right?
Yeah,
keep doing big days.
Yeah.
And I think the beautiful thing is, like, once you do like a massive week and you're doing like 6 or 7 hour rides, then doing like a 3 or 4 hour ride, which is also extremely beneficial versus what you normally do, it's much easier to keep up with that, like to do a 4 hour ride.
Yeah.
So, it should be easier to maintain and to keep ticking along now. As long as the weather stays nice.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, we'll do an episode on this, training camps.
Yeah.
Right. How, I've been on a few training camps as you have, and just removing a couple external stresses of your day to day, man, it opens up a huge amount of training volume. Nothing sustainable, but like what you kind of like, we didn't have time for anything else. You rode and then you did some stuff and you went to bed.
Yeah.
And for that period of time, that was what you were doing. And you can do that because that was what you were doing. Whereas you can plan in your hometown to be like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then you're like, oh, I'll go to the supermarket shopping. I'll go to like hang the washing out, do all this. Whereas you go, I'm going away for 3 days and I'm going to do, like if you're riding, I'm going to do 7 hours every day, and that's why you're going away and that's what you do. And then you do it and it gives you this huge boost. You recover from it, and then you're like, 4 hour ride. Like,
easy.
3 hour run. Like, I'm going to run twice a day for 3 days in another town. I'm going to plan it, take all my kit, plan the routes, and then I'm good to go. And, put a bit of money aside so you go out to dinner. You don't have to take care of dishes or anything. And, yeah, training camps just for that.
Yeah.
Are great.
Yeah,
it's kind of what you did.
A little bit.
A lot more stress.
Yeah, well, it was pretty busy throughout the day. I wouldn't say I was stressed, but...
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. Not like stress, but a stressor.
Yeah.
On your system.
Yeah. But I guess the interesting part for me is the opposite. So that was the least training I've ever seen you do. Like, you did one ride, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, which I haven't seen you ride.
Yeah, I haven't ridden on the road, outside of the virtual Zwift world. I think it's like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, like, cause I live in Rotorua, so if I'm gonna get my bike out, I'm going mountain biking.
Yeah.
So the road bike was, it was fun.
Yeah, road riding's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, like I do enjoy road riding. We don't have the best road riding in Rotorua, and so and the admin, like compared to Zwift, where you just go, and then you stop, and you're at home, as opposed to like trying to get through the traffic lights, blah, blah, blah. I can find plenty of excuses.
Yeah, that's good.
So Kieran had 2 bikes, his road bike, standard, Trek, carbon, whatever, road bike. And then he had his gravel bike, and gravel is the new whatever, new road. And man, that was so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, for anyone who's like, oh, maybe I'll I coach a lot of runners and a lot of them enjoy biking as well, like mountain biking and stuff. But mountain biking is hard. You're kind of going up or down.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of like cruising. And if you cruise, you're going like 18 k's an hour. It's too slow. So the gravel bike was it's designed to be comfortable. And New Zealand roads aren't the best. So.
No, I'd say they're some of the worst. They're very bumpy. So having the extra volume of a tire.
Yeah, and this like slacker geometry kind of, I think that's how they do it at the back end on the frame, just to make it a bit more compliant.
Yeah, the wheelbase is a little bit longer and the head angle's a bit more slack, so you're more comfortable in your steering and your handling.
It was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I got on video, I got you attacking Kieran at one point.
I had to take my jacket off and I didn't want to be like, Kieran, can you stop? And I didn't, he was riding, like, I'm not super strong. Yeah. Like, so to have to ride back up to him, because we were about to go down, we're on a hill, big hill. Yeah. And then I would never catch back up, him going 70 k's an hour. So anyway, I just attacked and I was like, I'll meet you at the top. And so, yeah, launched it.
Yeah, we were sitting in the van behind because we had the tail van the whole time.
Yeah.
So to keep things safe and for support. And I had just had my phone out to get a video and I got you attacking Kieran. I was like, what is he doing? So I'll keep that for a rainy day.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time you weren't really running. Like you were running with him, but that wasn't much. What did you think of that?
I didn't like it at all. So yeah, initially, the plan was to run 20 to 30 kilometers a day. So what's that for our American listeners? Like 15 to 20 miles.
Something like that. Yeah.
A day. And I was like, can't wait, this is going to be a great training block. And then we ended up, first day we did 20 kilometers, about 13 miles. And after that, it was like 6 miles, 10 Ks. Like, cause he's just so cracked. Yeah. And that was even like a push. Couple days were more like a 10 mile, 15 kilometer couple days, but it was so slow. It was like, yeah, it was definitely, and then I had to wait all day till we finally got off the bike, and before I could do this like super easy run. And, yeah, it was a lot less, and, I have a race this weekend.
Oh.
This is really unique, like, they have a start time for the regional 10K road running champs. There's there's all online registration, and we literally just have to be there at 12:15 on the start line. And that's when the race starts, and it finishes, and you go home.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like COVID compliant?
Yeah. So, cause outside of Auckland, we're on level 2. Anyway, pretty much, like, we're restricted, but we're allowed 100 people.
Okay.
And for the regional champs, 10 kilometer champs, there'll be, the fixed entries at 100 people anyway. But yeah, I quite like it, as still being able to get a race and not having all that admin of like getting your number and all of that. Yeah. I think they, I'm not sure how they're giving out the chip, the timing chip. I think they give it out to you just on the start line. Okay. Like everyone's got to be there about 10 minutes before. Here, pin this on, and you've got 10 minutes kind of thing. But it's cool.
That is cool. I like the idea of
that. Yeah. Like we're running a race at 12:15.
Yeah.
Register beforehand. Turn up. I'm not sure how they do the chip thing, but get your thing, because you can't all, we can't all contact each other and go register and write our names down and all of that. So if you don't want to sign up online, you can't come. Like, and this is the start time. If you're late, you can't do it. Like, and it's running at this time. We're not going to, there's no prize givings or anything to slow anyone down. Like, this is the time.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good. Like, shouldn't more events maybe be like that? Like, I don't want to go pick up my race packet anyway and get my
especially when it's like 3 hours beforehand.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just like,
like, I don't need this plastic bag and this, like, gel. I'll buy my own gel. Like, it's nice to have, if you pay that much.
Yeah. And for the big events, like, sure, like the big hype one, like an Ironman or like, 100-mile run or something, you want a bit of hype behind it. But for a lot of events that we do, just the turn up and go is all good.
So it's almost more like the park run format kind of thing.
Yeah. Super similar to that, actually. Yeah. Now that you mention it. Yeah. And that works incredibly around the world.
Yeah.
So
cool. Oh, that's exciting. Is that why? So I brought in some cookies that I had left over. I know Will loves a good cookie, but I was like, hey, bro, I got you sorted for today. And you're like, no, I got my salad in a smoothie. So you're doing keto.
I'm back on ketosis.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I didn't do a lot of training, and so now I'm like, oh my god, I'm unfit. I haven't trained,
but that's not true, right?
I know. Yeah. And I worked with because I work personally with Jay Barrett, mental skills coach, to help me with all of my performance anxieties and whatever. And so we worked through that. I know I have my specific goals of what I'm trying to achieve within an event, but you still have those thoughts like, oh my god, I'm not fit enough and that. So I'm working through those for this Sunday, and the main thing was, since lockdown, I'm sure people can relate, my diet has been atrocious. Like, you know, whatever we're using to justify it. I've been eating chocolate like it's going out of, like, they're going to stop manufacturing it. Like, and then there's been no event, so there's been no, like, I need to be in shape.
Yeah.
You know, there just has been nothing. And then, we had this trip, and if you travel, you eat like crap.
Yeah.
It's kind of they go hand in hand, right? You go to the service station and get pie, some snacks, some drinks, like, and then you drive on to the next one.
Yeah.
And that's, I remember you telling me actually, like, when you used to drive across America, because in New Zealand, like, our roads are slow. You know, you're averaging like 70 k's an hour between, but you would drive like hundreds of miles and kilometers, right? Remember, you'd just like go stock up on your snacks, like your beef jerky and stuff, and then just get going.
I think I was vegan then, so I'd probably stock up on like chips and I don't know, Monster Energy, you know? Standard vegan diet.
Yeah, Doritos.
Yeah. Well,
they weren't, but
yeah. You know, depends on the day. But yeah, it's definitely difficult to stay healthy on the road. And I kind of came to those same realizations. I'm like, I need to clean up my diet.
Yeah.
We had that, like, so I had a talk with my partner when we got home. I was like, look, we're going to eat better. So it's funny that you mentioned that. So we've been eating a lot better.
Is that why you got the biscuits here? Cookies?
Well, see, back on the road, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to the store, I bought, you know, good food, and then I was like, oh, these cookies are pretty good.
Yeah, and then you justify it because you're like, oh, I'm away, I'm out of routine when I get back.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, for me, ketosis, and not generally low carb, but I want to, because I have a ketone meter, and man, I want to do videos on it, but you know how it goes. So I'm going to put out some videos on, like, why ketosis and what it is and how it's different to low carb and how I monitor it properly, why you would do ketosis, what it means metabolically, how that relates to performance, that kind of stuff. But for me, if you want to be in ketosis, it is extremely strict. And we're talking about the metabolic state of ketosis, where there's so little carbohydrate in your whole body that you need to generate an alternative fuel source, so that, because there's not enough glucose for your brain and muscles, that you, like, if that was how it was, if I continued to eat that way, there's such little carbohydrate, or glucose, same thing for the brain, you would die. Right. Like, your brain would lack function, because it can't burn fats. So we as a human race generate, ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate, SO-acetate, that the brain can use as an alternate fuel, and we can make ketones from fat. It's like win-win. And the muscles can also burn ketones, so can the cardiac tissue and stuff, while preserving the glucose that we can generate from byproducts like lactate. The small amounts you get from your diet, you can also generate it from some protein sources. So we can eat no carbohydrate, and our body's, like, as it always is, efficient enough to generate an alternative fuel source to make sure we can always operate. But in order to get in that state, you just can't lapse on your carbohydrate intake. Because as soon as you do, the body goes, there it is, there's the carbohydrate we need. Shut off this redundant process that's really, like, energetically inefficient. So to get fat and then convert it into another energy source and then burn that energy source is not a useful metabolic process.
I mean, it's useful, but it's not efficient.
Oh, yeah. So it's like energy wasting.
Yeah.
So, so I use that to go, all right, I can't eat any junk.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's just, trying to limit myself to around 1 gram of carbohydrate per kg per day. So when I weighed in, I was 78. Now my normal weight range is like 74 to 76, and I'd race at 73 to 75 in terms of a weight range. It's like 2 kgs over. I was like, and I hadn't weighed myself for a while. You know when you, like,
you
just don't want to know. Yeah. And then I was like, 78. I haven't been 78 in a very long time. Now, yesterday, so that was on Monday, Wednesday, yesterday, 2 days later, I was 76.5. So I lost 1.8 kgs in 2 days. Now that's water, and I had a huge water retention from poor diet and travel that, I'd done. But anyway, so 1 gram per kg per day. Now, you're going to see ketosis, like recommendations for like 20 grams or no carbs, which is, you did my ketone diet, you did my low carb diet. You know, like, just if you have a flat white, like a bit of milk in your coffee, there's like 7 grams of carbs. You have, like, you put a tomato in your salad, there's another 7. You're at 14. You have, like, there's a gram in bacon. There's like a gram in cream, a gram in cheese, and then you have whatever else. There's a bit in the meat and the salad that you have. And before you know it, you're at like 50, 60 grams. Especially when you're exercising, you need to consume more calories.
Yeah.
So what I learned during my research was, like, you can actually eat, if you're exercising, say you did like a 4-hour ride or something, you're burning a lot of carbohydrate, like, regardless how easy you're going. It's just the nature of metabolic processes. Talked about this in our course.
Yeah.
Masterclass. It's a spectrum. Like, it's a continuum. Like, you'll always be burning some kind of energy source. So 1 gram per kg, anyway, seems to sit about right. It's definitely above average, but it's what works, because you're trying to get into the metabolic state of ketosis, and that is not directly attached to the amount of carbohydrate. It is highly related, it must have a correlation of like 0.9, like 90%. But I got a message on Instagram when I put up, my first ketone reading, and the guy had mentioned around carbohydrate intake and stuff. And I was like, when you're exercising, you could even eat maybe like 300 grams of carbs if you were doing a hard, like, 3-hour effort, whatever it is, and still be in ketosis, because those carbohydrates they're getting immediately used. Like, if you take like a gel during your ride, you're not going to break the bank or whatever. So yes, that it's correlated, but anyway, it stops me eating junk.
Yeah.
Because I won't be in ketosis if I eat junk, and it's like fun, it's an experiment, it works in terms of losing weight for me.
Yeah, and you don't do it forever. Like, you're not
no
gonna
way.
stay in ketosis.
Unsustainable.
Yeah.
For
Because
sure.
you love cookies too much.
I just love junk food.
Yeah.
Like everyone does.
Yeah.
It's designed for us to like it,
Yeah.
And so then my plan is I'll do the 14-day, like the 2-week adaptation period, because it takes a while, like any kind of adaptation to anything, running, cycling, interval training, whatever. It takes a little while for the body to adapt. And then from there, I'll just go into a cyclic process where I'll do, depending on when my race is or big training session, I'll do like a Friday night, Saturday, carbs on, and then carbs off Sunday to Friday again.
Okay, so you're kind of using this 2 weeks to get into your normal routine again.
Yeah, and break bad habits as well. You know how that is. Like,
Yeah.
you just bought cookies.
Yeah.
And
They look delicious.
they are delicious, yeah. But I'm also like 4 days in now, so kind of on that, I'm just not eating that.
Yeah.
So it becomes not even a choice or an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
And you feel all good without carbohydrates now? Because I know it's like in my experience, it's a struggle at the start, especially if you keep exercising.
yeah. Yeah. So the last couple of days, I didn't really know what it was, because we just come down off this like really intense trip, and then getting straight back into like catching up with everything. But anyway, last 3 days, rubbish. Felt like rubbish. Today, feel really good.
Okay.
And you know what it's like when you come through that adaptation period. You're on like this massive high where you have no energy peaks or troughs. You have like this super sustained energy because there's no insulin effect. There's no like blood sugar fluctuations. It's because you're not even affecting blood sugar in any way. So there's no peaks and troughs in the energy supply to your brain, which is, results in concentration. You just have ketones, continuous supply of them. And yeah, so I'm getting there. I think another couple days. But what I need to figure out is how I've got a 10K race. And I know from the past, Depending on the intensity of it and and what activity I'm doing, I have like 20 to 30 minutes of like high intensity activity in ketosis, because you never like completely rid your body of carbohydrate. The body's too efficient. It will keep generating it from, proteins, amino acids and things and fats, and it'll store it. So you still actually end up with full glycogen stores after like 7 days or whatever. And so it's but the process of burning carbohydrate is inhibited, because it's the last thing you want to do, right? You have none and your brain needs it, and then to just do one effort and burn it all, it's just not a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to stay in ketosis, but also have carbohydrate available. So what I'll do is have like a gel or something we kind of don't recommend doing.
You're gonna have a gel on the start line?
Just after a proper warm up.
Okay.
But we do it's a 30-minute effort.
Yeah.
And having a gel on the start line doesn't impact anything.
Yeah.
Like normally I would have my carbohydrates in the morning.
Yeah.
Make sure I digest like a full breakfast, full carb stores. But I'm trying to I'm trying to manipulate my metabolism at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's so carb hungry that just a good 50 gram bolus, around 15 to 30 minutes out, probably both.
Wow.
Hits me.
Wow. That is something we would never recommend. But that's because of the insulin response. Like, you don't want the insulin response when you're waiting to exercise really hard.
And you don't want to be burning carbs straight off the bat when you are entering into like an hour and a half event.
Because you need to spare them.
Yeah. Whereas you're burning them straight from the go in a 30-minute.
Right.
Or like a 16, on the bike, 16K, 20K time trial is pretty standard. You want to kind of make sure you have full glycogen, because that's the main goal, and then settle back into a fat burning state so that the carbs are just spared just slightly. Whereas if you smash that gel just on the start line, it would depend actually how you'd warmed up, like, because you could take it during a warm up, but right when you're standing on the start line, it's doing nothing to an already excitable system. It's just promoting like glycolysis even further. Whereas like in a like ketotic state, it's just like the muscle's just like, I'll take that.
Yeah. So I guess it'd be a good test, because you'd be able to test your ketones during that whole prococess.
Yeah.
During your warm up.
Well, I actually have a ketone supplement as well.
Whoa, that thing tastes disgusting.
Yeah. So that was something I developed. I didn't really develop. I've undergrad in biochemistry, right? So Team Sky was like, we're using ketone supplements in like 2015, I think it was. So I looked it up and I was like, I know what this metabolic precursor is, 1,3-butanediol. So I went to the chemical supplies company, ordered a bottle of it, and then, so what that does, alcohol dehydrogenase, in the liver converts this 1,3-butanediol into beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is ketones, blood ketones. That's what, if you have a ketone meter, it's what comes out. Like, that's the measurement. Like, if you saw on my Instagram, that's what I put up. So I was like, I can do that. And so I did. As far as I'm aware, one of the first people in the world to do it. And I sat there in the lab. Were you there? And I had a heart rate monitor on, and I was testing it all out, and told some other sports scientists. A lot of people probably know Dan Plews, Paul Lawson, Prof and Plews. We worked together on some stuff, and anyway, I could use that, because what I was able to do was drink a whole bowl of Powerade, Gatorade, which has like 100 grams of carbs, 60, 100, and with this supplement, and have like starvation level blood ketones.
Yeah.
So I could do that. But what I found was it didn't impact like long term. It was like I was saying, the body's like super flexible, metabolic flexibility. That was my PhD. That's, the body, like, if you produce it, if you give it ketones exogenously, externally, like a gel of ketones, it'll go, cool, I'll use those. Yep, no problem. And then they're not there anymore. Well, you still, now you drink Powerade, so you have enough Gatorade.
Yeah.
you have enough carbs available. I'm no longer gonna. So what I saw was not what was reported in the media, and still is. I see it's having a resurgence. You sent me an article. around ketone supplements, saying if you take a ketone supplement, you're going to get like ketosis level metabolic adaptations, like fat burning and an alternative energy source, and you can drink, your sports drink and have all the benefits of that. And it's like, maybe if you were someone who trained very minimally, like with anything like pomegranate juice or beetroot juice, and those. If you're an elite athlete, you're so finely tuned, trying to the body just goes, it just switches gears. Like, oh, you want to provide this? I'll burn that. You want to do this? I'll do that. Like, unless you're directly injecting EPO or something, you're not getting the benefits.
Yeah, everyone is still looking for that quick fix, but unfortunately, hard work still.
It's still, yeah, and planning and preparation and everything. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, we'll look forward to seeing how you go on the ketones and how you go on this event.
Yeah, I'll be really interested because, I used to do ketosis and low carb, a lot. I used to do it, but then, it's hard.
There's admin involved in it.
Yeah, you got to always be prepared. That's why I'm sitting here with a smoothie bottle.
Yeah, it looks gross, by the way.
full of protein powder cream and coconut cream. And it's sitting at room temperature, so it is probably going to be gross because I forgot to put it in the fridge. But yeah, if I didn't do that, where am I going to go to get something that doesn't have carbs in it?
Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah, so you have to go without, and then you make bad choices because you're hungry.
Yeah,
and your body's going to be like, get those cookies.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now.
But yeah, we'll report on that next week. We're back. We're back on the podcast.
Back to the regularly scheduled show. So next we have a few guests lined up, which will be pretty cool. Some science topics with some experts. So stay in touch with those. And we're also planning for our new course as well. So we'll release details on that soon.
Yeah, and the current Performance Advantage Podcast Masterclass 6-part course is available. Now, we are in talks with, sort of sharing that with someone wants to buy it. Yeah. So we're super stoked on partnering with a big international company around that course. So we will bring back the 50% off deal so we're currently in August, and we'll just run it until that course is no longer going to be available. So jump on performanceadvantagepodcast.com, links in the bio and everything. Get on that course while it's available, because when someone else gets a hold of it, it's definitely not going to be $150.
Yeah, for sure. So we've had a lot of great feedback on the course, and it's super exciting to be able to offer it, really. So it's an extension of the podcast, and the webinars have been going really good. So keep it rolling.
Yeah, and check us out on social media. We're always sharing what we're up to, stuff like this. So until next time, everyone, have a good one.
See you.